We are live.
Started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
Oh, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin. Would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Well, off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
And sometimes it's even talk therapy. Welcome live to the Hockey Podcast. Good morning. If you are in the West, good morning. Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we are currently at 100 and Sam Bennett of subscribers. You like that, Devin? You like that?
I love
number?
it. Well,
number there?
You could have gone Gordie Howe, but that's fine. That's okay.
That's true. 100 and Gordie Howe of subscribers as well. But I thought, currently relevant with Sam Bennett in the playoffs.
Yes.
You could also subscribe to the audio as soon as this is over. It was a little late to get into. Obviously, last night the game ended 11:15 my time, which would have been 12:15 your time, Devin. So we decided to get some sleep, get our brains kind of reflected, and respond this morning to a very interesting night of hockey. But of course, the big story we'll start with is the Winnipeg Jets have swept the Edmonton Oilers with the Kyle Connors win, a goal in overtime, triple overtime victory. And the Winnipeg Jets are advancing to the North Division Final. They're determining who they play. We'll get to that. We'll discuss everything else, including Spencer Knight's debuts, Cam Talbot's heroic performance, Tristan Jarry's gaffe, and the Leafs and the Habs. So we got lots to get into. But Devin, how are you? Did you have a good sleep?
Yeah, definitely needed it, and I fell asleep on the couch watching the Oilers Jets game. So woke up and wondered what happened. So had to do a bit of a recap this morning. But overall, I'm doing well. How are you, Kev?
I'm good. I'm awake. I'm actually going to have a rant, Devin. Do I rant a lot?
You have at least like 3 or 4 a year, and usually it's around this time.
Okay, well, fair enough. So this is, I understand that, as media at times you need to create content and you need to make sure that your stuff is out there, and that's all part of the process that we're all doing, and I'm part of that as well. But Devin, I have to tell you, unless I miss something based on the media takes that I am seeing the last few hours here, it seems like the Edmonton Oilers had a practice for 4 games. And basically what happened is they ended up scoring on themselves because there was no opponent on the ice for the Edmonton Oilers. Like they lost to a mystery team. Nobody is giving for a team that has gotten a swept a series. I have never seen such disrespect to a team that has swept a series. Like I'm sorry, this is mind-numbingly embarrassing, the takes that I'm seeing about the Winnipeg Jets. That there's one take that they're the least talented team in the playoffs. There's another take that the Edmonton Oilers had a better defense than the Winnipeg Jets. The Oilers who played Darnell Nurse for 60 minutes last night and played and sat 3 other defensemen, while the Winnipeg Jets played 4 to 6 for pretty much the entire triple overtime. the Winnipeg Jets, who, like, for some Vancouver Canuck riders, get mad when Nikolai Ehlers was drafted behind Jake Virtanen, and all of a sudden he's not that talented of a guy. Like, this is ridiculous. The disrespect to the Winnipeg Jets is if you're doing that, it is mind-numbingly embarrassing. Like, this is an embarrassment. I understand that the hot take is about Connor McDavid, and that's what's going to get you your clicks. But my God, can we just stop and give some credit to the Winnipeg Jets? This is horrendous. It's embarrassing, Devin. Like, it's honestly embarrassing.
You know, if we were going to just, simulate it, yes, the Winnipeg Jets would probably lose overall. If we were supposed to do just simulation, the teams that are expected to win will most likely win. Then why even play the games? Why even have the playoffs if we know that the Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup this year? The Winnipeg Jets did a great job. That third line shutting down Connor McDavid, of Lowry, Kopp, and Appleton, unbelievable. They played their heart out, and they outplayed them. Period. Like, the goaltending was amazing for Hellebuck, and there's some criticism to Mike Smith. He let in a couple soft goals, but overall he kept the Oilers in it for the majority of the time, right? So my biggest thing is like the criticism towards Mike Smith that I don't think it's warranted. I really don't.
No,
like
no,
the fact
it's
that
actually not.
No, the fact that Nurse played over 60 minutes and they only played Slater Cuckoo just a hair under 10 minutes last night in a 3 overtime. You played almost 2 games. Six periods were almost played, right?
Yeah.
So it baffles me, and I said this at the beginning. The depth of the Jets is going to be the turning point within this series, and it was. So give credit to the Jets. They deserve the win, and the adage that the Oilers lost it for themselves, sure, but at the same time, they got to play somebody. Like you said, it's not. They didn't practice. They didn't have a practice for 4 games, and scored on their own net to lose the entire series. I don't know. It's baffling. It really is. And like 2 years ago, you had the Tampa Bay Lightning get swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that was supposed to be a fucking write-off too. It wasn't. So, Kevin, I'm on the same page. As you. Outrage.
And it's funny because we look at the NHL is the best playoffs for this to happen. It's rare in the 3 other major sports, and even soccer. You rarely see this where a team can win the cup from any seed. You saw the Nashville Predators as an 8 seed get to the final. The Los Angeles Kings, people forget, they were a 7-8 seed winning the Stanley Cup back a few years ago. You can win from anywhere. And as Connor McDavid said, the regular season doesn't matter. But I think what does is also getting missed with the Winnipeg Jets, just from an overall picture. The amount of distractions this organization has been through the last couple of years. Like, can you imagine if this was if this happened in Vancouver, the Jacob Trouba demanding out, the Dustin Byfuglien retirement. You had the Patrick Laine for Pierre-Luc Dubois trade, and Jack Roslovic. Let's not forget that he was in that trade as well. You traded a guy that was a distraction for a guy that certainly came in as a distraction. Without question, no matter where you came from, he had issues coming in. You had the injury for Nikolai Ehlers. You had the demand of Paul Maurice being fired. And again, not enough has been talked about this, but the organization, Dale Howard, the loss of Dale Hawerchuk for that Winnipeg Jet community, that was huge. If this was Toronto, if this was Vancouver, we would be talking hours about this stuff. But because this is Winnipeg, we're like, oh yeah, well, it's the Oilers lost. It's because the Oilers. It's because Oilers. But you want stats. the Winnipeg Jets came back 3 times in this series from a deficit, which included, by the way, the 4-1 game on yesterday. They outscored the Oilers in the last 2 games. Yeah, 2 days ago. Right. Sorry. My days are all mixed up here. They outscored the Oilers in the third period in the last 2 games 4-1. I mean, you can tell me, you can point out all the stats where the Oilers had the possession and how the lead and all of this. You cannot measure heart, desire, success, and teamwork does not come on a piece of paper and in a computer graph. And that's where the Winnipeg Jets had the edge.
Yep, absolutely. The intangibles. You went down the list a little bit of teams that weren't supposed to do anything in the playoffs. 04 Flames, part of that. LA Kings, when they won their first cup, part of that. Just ask the Vegas Golden Knights when they first came into the league. They weren't supposed to do anything, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's just there's certain things that need to be said, and and give credit to, and that once again, that's the Winnipeg Jets. Hellebuck, he stood on his head, and yes, you have arguably the best player in the fucking world, in Connor McDavid, and you have you do have another top 10 player within Leon Draisaitl. Outside of that, who do you have? Who do you have that makes you so much better than the Winnipeg Jets? The Winnipeg Jets can roll 3 lines and be perfectly fine. They could run all 4 lines, and I'd still think that they would be able to come out on top and ahead. And like you said, that I hate saying this because like me, but I said at the beginning of this year,
take it. You deserve the pat on the back.
The defense on this team, on this roster, is way better than anybody gave credit to them. Like I said, DeMello, he has been fantastic. He's been a warrior for that back end. Tucker Pullman, Tucker who, right? The guy who was the leading scorer within this 4-game set against
the first 2
Oilers.
games. The first 2 games he was the leading, and then that I had to get rid of that take. But
yeah. Neil Pionk, he's a warrior as well. Forward, Morrissey and Logan Stanley. Oh man, talk about a bit of a breakout season for him. He's been phenomenal. He's a massive human being. And he's being a massive contributor on that lineup too. So it's not about individual efforts at the end of the day. It's about how well your team plays around each other and coming together. And people even today, people aren't giving are saying that, okay, well, whoever wins out of Toronto and Montreal, and most people are saying Toronto, that it's not going to be a series, that they're just writing them off. Once again, then why the hell play the games? Why even bother, right? So I really am hoping, obviously, because I'm a Toronto fan, that Toronto comes out on top here with Montreal, and then you'll have that secondary series between Winnipeg and Toronto. And as we talk, we'll get into that. We'll cross that bridge when it comes, I guess. I won't get into that just yet because obviously the game still have to be played, and Montreal could come out on top.
Yeah, the one play there when Logan Stanley lost his stick and he took Trevor Lewis's stick and he boxed the shot. It's this little twig in his arm.
Oh my god! At least it wasn't Perreault, because Perreault he's a smaller player, or even like a Johnny Gaudreau type of stick. He'd be on his knees playing mini sticks at that point.
Yeah. I just just with Logan Stanley, and that is a first round pick that was in the same draft of the Ole Juolevi, Matthew Tkachuk, Jesse Puyarvi draft, and I mean a little lower down, so not as highly touted as everyone else, but it's a cautionary tale. It's why sometimes you do need to be patient with defense, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a lesson with the Canucks with Ole Juolevi, and it's a lesson with the Flames with the guys like Yusuf Halamaki.
Yep.
And And that's where I think Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't get a lot of credit with the Jets too, is how patient he was with this team. I mean, he didn't, he didn't go out and mortgage the future to get that elite defenseman. They have an elite defenseman, I think, in Josh Morrissey. I think he's an elite NHL defenseman. I think he's a top 2 defenseman. Maybe someone with a better take will disagree with me there, but I think Josh Morrissey is an elite defenseman. Neil Pionk is establishing himself as well. But they didn't go out and make a panic trade. I mean, they had to make that Line A Dubois trade. I think that was more out of necessity for more than anything else. They got Jordy Ben. Jordy Ben didn't see the ice in this series. That was their big move. They kept it together, and and give credit to Paul Maurice too. We'll get to this when we start talking about the Oilers, but he absolutely outcoached Dave Tippett. I think very clearly he outcoached Tippett, like embarrassingly outcoached him in some ways.
Yeah. Yep. Every single aspect of the Winnipeg Jets organization should have a pat on their back. Like you said, from Cheveldayoff down to the coaching and the players. And Maurice, he definitely outcoached Tippett easily. I don't think there's any more to really say about it, because it's blatant, it's obvious. I don't think there's really much more to break down between that the coaching, because if to Tippett's benefit or benefit of the doubt, he did the best what he had. To deploy. He didn't have that depth. He didn't have the options. He couldn't trust Ethan Bear or Slater Cuckoo at all. Like, once again, if you look at their time on ice, like I said, Cuckoo, he's just a hair under 10 minutes, and even Ethan Bear, he was 14:02, and everybody else was up there. The next person was Chris Russell at 32 minutes and Larson at 39. So I feel bad for him, because if you don't trust the players that are on the ice, if you don't trust your depth, you're grinding out your top players, and within arguably the hardest championship to win, the longest road to get to that championship, you need to have way more depth within your lineup than that. And that's where I feel bad for Tippett, is that he did the best with what he had.
Yeah, I mean, and Nikolai Ehlers electric throughout, and then Scheifele, Connor, and Wheeler, every time they were on the ice last night, they were in complete control. And and we do need to give credit to Blake Wheeler taking the shot in the, and I'm using air quotes, hand. I'll just leave it there. But that was, let's just say it wasn't the hand.
Yep.
But that guy's a warrior too. Mark Scheifele, if he was in a bigger market, similar to Barkov, he would be considered a superstar in this league. Kyle Connor, I think, is so underrated.
Yep.
Just
perennial 30 goal scorer every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah. So to me, go ahead.
It was just Pierre-Luc Dubois. If we're going to do a little bit of criticism, Pierre-Luc Dubois needs to come out and play a little bit better, I think. You noticed him here and there, but overall, imagine if they had the Pierre-Luc Dubois of 2 years ago, when he got called out by his coach in Tortorella, and he came up the next game and scored a hat trick. He was a complete beast within that series against Tampa Bay, and if he can start rolling like he was, then it'll be very, very interesting to see how far this Winnipeg Jets team can go, especially when you have Connor Hellebuck playing as well as he has. Yeah.
I think Dubois. This is one of those years for Dubois. It's going to be fascinating what the offseason, what he gets a full year in Winnipeg. Yep. Too. I think that will be fine as well. And Lowry Cop, we already, well done, a well done job. And the other thing with Winnipeg too, like just imagine if there was this, we talked about this all the time, if there was fans in the stands. But Devin, this is the first time that they have won a series against a Canadian team since they beat the Flames back in 1987.
Oh my God.
They have not won a series against a Canadian team. I mean, and yes, there was some time like that is, for, younger generation Winnipeg fans, I mean, they had the conference final, but for older generation, like just that is, I think we've given not enough attention as being credit to the Jets. So we had to start there, to me.
Yeah, no, and then that's perfectly fine. I'm more than happy to start there. I'm now they have some time off. Now they have they can wait, especially with the other series, Toronto and Montreal, only having 3 games so far. It's 2-1 for Toronto. They can sit back, relax, lick their wounds if they have any, and maybe get on the practice ice here soon to amp up for the second round.
Yeah. And Michael Sachs asks, how far you think the Jets can they make it to the finals? I think that's a little bit too early. We don't know who everyone else is. And let's get into the Oilers here. As an organization, I'm going to, something Milan Lucic said in the Flames media availability, I think is so relevant here. He said when you focus on team stats and you don't, you focus more on individual stats more than team stats, you don't get team results. I think the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm about to say something that's going to piss off some Oiler fans, but until you realize that the object of this game is to win the Stanley Cup, not the Art Ross Trophy, this is just going to continue to happen. This is just going to continue to happen. You got 184 points from McDavid and Draisaitl combined this year. If you didn't get that, quite frankly, you would be a lottery team. Like, let's just be flat out honest about that. The depth on this team is it's non-existent. And I mean, you saw that from Dave Tippett, and it seemed going back to Game 3 with what Josh Archibald did, and he got suspended for it. I think probably there was some argument from Winnipeg media that should have been a major. I don't disagree with that. That the low bridge on Logan Stanley, but at that time, that just didn't that tell you a little bit where the Oilers were at? This is a group of individuals. This doesn't strike to me. The Oilers do not strike me as a team. They strike me as a team, like they put so much on the shoulders of Connor McDavid, so much like, and the NHL does too. I mean, we had a camera isolating Connor McDavid pretty much every moment. I'm surprised we didn't get a filming of him in the bathroom last night. Like, honestly, did you see how much that was? It's just until they figure out this team concept, they're not going anywhere.
I'm sure they have the team concept idea. It's just what do they have to work with up there? You go down the list of players that are there. You have Draisaitl, McDavid, and then you have a tier below that in Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and then in my opinion, you also have another tier below that in Puljujarvi, and then you have everybody else pretty much. Zach Kassian, he's a pest. He's good at what he does, but he's not a top 4 player. He'd be perfect on a third line, banging, crashing. You have Ryan McLeod, who if Draisaitl and McDavid are together, he's slotted in at second line center. He's still a young player, and giving him that responsibility is good, but your expectations there are too high to go up against other teams' top lines. So I do want to give Edmonton Oilers fans credit here, as far as you hang your hat on the fact that you have once again arguably the best player in the world on your team, and then you have another top 10 player in Draisaitl. But I do feel bad for them, because what success have they had other than going to the finals in the 2000s there? what was it, 2006? Right? Am I right with that? Where they went on their run?
That was pretty much. That's been pretty much it. They won one round. They won the one round a couple of years ago,
and then they lost against Anaheim.
And they lost against Anaheim. That was the year they beat. That was the year the Ducks swept the Flames.
Yep. So that was 2016, wasn't it? Or 18?
17, 18, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And they've lost, I want to say they've lost 6 playoff games in a row. I'm not counting what happened to Chicago last year because that was not playoffs. I'm sorry, that was play-ins.
I disagree with you. That counts. That counts.
Okay, but if you do, they've lost 10 of their last 11. Then, if you want to hold that stat, 10 of the last 11 playoff games they've lost.
Yep.
It was 9 of the last 10 or something like that. They've won one playoff. They've won one play-in playoff game the last 3 times that they were in the playoffs.
And if you're a fan of that organization, then you gotta hang your hat on something. And McDavid getting and Draisaitl getting almost 200 points together combined in the shortened season is something that hang on to it. But once again, you're 100% right. It's about winning the Stanley Cup. That is the ultimate goal. And right now, Peter Holland has a massive offseason going on here. Does Ryan Nugent Hopkins come back? You have one more year at Koskinen at $4 million as your backup. Are you going to bring back Mike Smith before? And I think that they will. I think that having him at a discounted price as your quote unquote 1A is a good option for you. Granted, I don't know who's going to be out there in free agency, but you don't want to blow your brains out with the amount of cap room that you have on your goalie. You got to spread the wealth around. You got to make sure that you have that depth instead of just having all in one player, because you have $6 million coming off for Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Barry's his 1-year deal's over. You have to re-sign Adam Larson. And I think you should, personally, if you can get him at a good price. Adam Larson, he's been a good player. Take the fact that he was traded 1-for-1 for Taylor Hall out of the equation, and just realize what you have there, and a good, gritty, shot blocking, hitting defenseman that can is a good second line pair, top 3 player for you on the back end. So. Like I said, Peter Holland has a hell of a offseason ahead of him, and I'm very, very curious. There's a bunch of teams out there who have a big offseason, Calgary being one of them, Vancouver being not quite up there, but another one that's going to be very interesting to see. So you got to hope that the GM of the Oilers is going to be able to do something here to surround McDavid and Draisaitl with depth, because the hot take of last offseason, I said, was that McDavid, if he doesn't see any progress here within the next 2 years, this being one of the years, if he doesn't see any progress within this year after this, I really, truly believe it's going to be another Jack Eichel situation, and he'll want out. McDavid wants to win. He wants to win.
I don't know if I see McDavid asking out. I mean, I don't even know if Jack Eichel technically said he. I mean, it's a very tenuous situation in Buffalo, and I'm not saying it's not it's a great situation in Edmonton. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if I'm not as convinced he's going to want to ask out. Why? I think he's because I just don't think it's in his nature. I don't think it's in him. I don't think he's that type of guy.
So you're saying that loyalty means more to him than winning does?
I think that this is something I had a conversation a little bit with. I mean, I asked this of the question on the Rod Peterson show, because I mean, one of the things that I think is going to be fascinating next year to go on a little bit of a tangent in 2022. If the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, and some people think that this is going to be a ridiculous take, if the Buffalo Sabres are in the position to take the number 1 pick next year or the year after that, does a Shane Wright or a Connor Bedard or whoever is projected to go number 1 say thanks but no thanks? Because that organization is a dumpster fire. And the argument against that is, and we haven't seen it in a while, but the argument against that is it just feels like it would ruin your Canadian image brand. And that's where, if you're, that's what I would think from Connor McDavid's perspective. I do think that has something to do with this. I mean, if he asks, I don't know if he can go public with it.
No,
I think
he
might be able to ask privately, but if this comes out publicly, I think that this becomes a very, very interesting debate. And if it's not a trade that the Oilers can win, they cannot get enough for Connor McDavid. Like, there's no way that can happen. Like,
well, the last player who got drafted and didn't want to and said no, thank you. That's been very notable. Has been Lindros, right?
Yeah, that was like 30 years ago. So it just rarely happens.
And you do have those U.S. graduates who get drafted and then they go through their collegiate years and don't sign or ask for a trade. And obviously, the tenuous topic of Adam Fox on this program has been documented throughout our podcasting for the past little bit here about whether or not that was a good trade or not. But I just personally see that McDavid, he wants to win. He's a winner. There's a video out there where him playing for the Otters there in the OHL. He was unbelievably pissed. He was going down the locker room and he wants to win. Look, you saw last night with him yelling at Puljujarvi for a shitty pass that he made. That's the fire that's inside of him. I just personally believe that his will to win outweighs loyalty. Loyalty is not a thing that is as common anymore. It's very old school. And these guys are contractors at the end of the day. They're looking for a contract, and the loyalty towards a certain organization. You do have those people that are willing to stick around to see it through. And we'll see what happens with Johnny Gaudreau in this offseason if he gets moved within that context of wanting to stick with an organization, because they're saying all the right things, but overall, what type of legacy are you giving there? Are you getting a legacy of a Jerome McGinley, of a Daniel and Henrik Sedin, or are you going to want to try and win somewhere else like a Marian Hossa did? I just don't think he I agree with you. He wants to win, but I think he will want the Oilers to make some. And I agree with you that he's going to have a conversation with Ken Holland, and some things absolutely need to change with what's going on in Edmonton. On those two things, I agree. But in terms of him wanting out, I think for a legacy perspective, I wonder if it makes more sense for him to win in Edmonton for the branding part of it. I mean, I'm certainly no expert, but for the branding part of it, does it make more sense for him to win in Edmonton than it does win somewhere else? And you got to think that Holland's going to be pitching the whole Stevie Yzerman angle to it, that he didn't win until he was later in his career, and an Ovechkin kind of legacy as well. But if you really look at the past decade or so, and who won, you have the Chicago Blackhawks, you have the Boston Bruins, you have the Tampa Bay Lightning winning, what my point is, if you look at the Chicago Blackhawks and the Sidney Crosbys, I guess Pittsburgh Penguins, they won their cups when they were a bit younger. So, and it's not an old man's game anymore. That longevity of a player's career and a player's peak is few and far between. Yes, you're going to have McDavid's going to be playing at least 2 to 3 decades within this league, and he is because of the way that he plays and how well how well players take care of the bodies now. But the average player's peak is within their mid-20s, not their 30s, not anymore, and that's when the Detroit Red Wings were so good because they had so much depth and so much legacy within that lineup with the older players that were able to play at that level later on in the career. So that's just my thought process. Like I said, it's a bit of a hot take, but overall, I think that it's whether or not he can see the Edmonton Oilers within the next, let's say, 3 years, being able to be competitive, because right now they're not competitive. They're not even close. And the Winnipeg Jets exploited that this time around.
Do you need a superstar to win a Stanley Cup?
No. Did St. Louis have a superstar?
No. Did Boston? Boston didn't have a superstar. Tampa Bay, did they have a superstar? Wow. They have stars. They have.
They had a superstar. They have like what? How many superstars are within this league? I guess if we're going rankings and elite, they definitely have a lot of elite players. Kucherov, if we're talking about Tampa, you have Kucherov, you have Stamkos, you have Braden Point, you have Victor Hedman, Vasilevsky. All those players that I just listed off are elite superstar players.
Are I guess where it's, and I think if they're playing in other places other than Tampa, Florida, we might consider them superstars.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I think that they are superstars within there. And then Boston, you once again, you had the Zdeno Chara over there. You had Marchand. You had the perfection line of Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron. And then you had talk about an underrated player in David Krejci. And he's not up there within the realm of those guys. But I guess going back to your original question, do you need a superstar to win? You don't. You need a team. It's a team game. It's a team effort. It's not the NBA where you can rely on the LeBron James. Like if it was the NBA, McDavid would be winning every single year or close to it. He'd be contending. But that's not the way that hockey works. That it's a team game, and if you don't come together as a team, then you're done. I've listened to Rhett Warner on the morning show talk about how tight knit that group was in 2004, and that's how they were able to go as far as they did because of the team atmosphere, and that you're willing to do anything for the guy sitting next to you, even though you don't probably like some of the players on your team, but you respect them enough. You understand what the end goal is, and that is to win a Stanley Cup. I don't think you need a superstar. It helps, but if you don't have the supporting pieces.
To me, there's 5, maybe 6 players that I think is branded as superstars. I'm not saying that you're wrong about Tampa Bay, but when I think of superstars, I think of McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, McKinnon, Crosby, Malkin, Ovechkin. Those are the ones that are branded as superstars.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think Kucherov is branded as a superstar. I think Kucherov is elite. I think Victor Hedman is elite. I think Victor Hedman's probably the best defenseman in the game. And I don't know if it's close. That's.
Yeah. For what he means to that organization is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Who went first in that draft? Oh, the Hedman draft. Because he went. Oh, I thought he went second. Who went second?
Let's go back here. Let's Ron McLean this.
Yeah, right. Oh, I love it.
But it just says he went second. 2009, he went second. John Tavares went first.
That's right. Yes, and there was that whole debate whether or not you would have a number one center or a number one defenseman. And look, how many How many cups does Hedman have? He has one right now. And how many does Tavares have? 0.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has had a few, he's had a few Norris Trophy wins, has he not?
Yeah, he's got what has he got here? He's got a couple for sure.
Yep.
I'll look that up. But meanwhile, just to jump within what I think the other just the stat that is scary for the Oilers. If I'm an Oilers fan, your third leading scorer this year, Tyson Barrie, fourth, 48 points, 8 goals. Darnell Nurse, who I'm just, you know what, for all that has been said, Darnell Nurse is emerged as an elite defenseman in this league. I don't like 100% like Darnell Nurse is like in a sense of he's a Mark Giordano type in the terms of like no matter how much you hate the Oilers, if you're a hater of the Oilers, you're going to have a respect for who Darnell Nurse is. He's that type of guy.
In our draft, I had him very high up for our all-Canadian draft, and I had him out of all the defensemen, he was up there in the top 5 to top 6, 7-ish. I don't remember exactly, but I love for what he does. He hits, he shoots, he's gritty, he fights, and those are the type of players that you do win with. So they do have a good top 2 defensemen on that blue line with him, and I cannot speak anything but good things about Darnell Nurse. He is a warrior, period, and stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree with you there. Absolutely. But the next one, to get to my point,
sorry,
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had 35 points, 16 goals, 19 assists, 35 points. That was the next highest forward scoring point after Leon Draisaitl.
Doesn't that speak a lot to what they have up front there?
Yeah, Kyler Yamamoto 8 goals, Alex Chason 9 goals, Dominic Cahoon 9 goals, Josh Archibald 7 goals, Jujak Hara 3, James Neal 5.
Who?
James Neal.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Just a lot of, and you can see Tippett it's spare part after spare part that you can just like you're trying to fit with McDavid and Draisaitl. Honestly, I was suspecting last night, Devin. I mentioned that in our chat. I was wondering if they were going to triple shift McDavid.
You definitely could, but once again, how much? Like if you're looking for a long cup run, you can only do that a certain amount of times, and let alone just having a regular shift of your superstars or your top end players. You could burn them out by the end of the second to third round. So, looking at the big picture, it's kind of crazy to think about how a lot of people had the Oilers going to, let's say, the semifinals, if not the finals, with not having that much depth, and how much you are relying on those 2 players to produce. And I mean, if you have such a shitty defense in Winnipeg, and I say shitty as in quotations because I think highly of them, more highly of them than a lot of others, but have them shut down the top 2 of the top 5 superstars in this league, it speaks volumes.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you had Zach Kassian with 2 goals. Kyle Turris, you brought in -11, 5 points, 7 minutes and 41 seconds of average ice time.
I mean, that's Turris. I believe that was a good gamble, personally. I thought that was a good gamble to bring him in on a, it was. It's not a team friendly deal, but it's a 1.65, and you'll have him again next year for same cap hit. But I thought it was a good gamble overall. I didn't mind it. for trying to bring in some depth for a player that has struggled within the past few years and had a very, very high contract down in Nashville and really didn't live up. And he's probably not living up to his 1.65 either, but you gotta, free agency is where GMs blow their brains out with with wanting to get a big player and get some scoring or get what your team is lacking. I just don't see within this free agency that Edmonton's going to be able. They might be able to get one player that's going to be an impact player for them and get some sort of depth scoring on that forward, because I think that's their number one priority, is to address what's going on that top end.
Yeah. They have an interesting expansion. They have some interesting expansion questions of who you protect there.
I think Sean has the McDavid's up north there for his expansion. So I'm kind of curious on what he does there. For those of you who don't know, we're doing a big expansion draft where Tyler, Chris, Sean, Kevin, and I are going to break down the expansion list, the teams and who they can expose, and what we would do if we were kind of our armchair GMing 5 or 6, 7 teams for the 5 of us. So tune in for that, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But they definitely do have a really interesting look at expansion here, along with a bunch of other teams. So did you have it up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's you got I mean, there's a few players. I mean, you talk about Kyle Turris being a gamble that didn't work out. I mean, Tyson Barrie was also a gamble, and that sort of worked out. I wonder if they bring him back. They only have 3 defensemen signed for next year, and that's Nurse, Russell, and Ethan Bear. Well, you do have Broberg and Bouchard and Jones, and you got to hope that some of them take. Sorry, let me correct that. I've got there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 4 UFAs, including Larson, Barry, Kulikov, and Cuckoo, and as UFAs. So you've got some work to do on defense. You've got to see where Bouchard and Broberg are at. You also have the question of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Are you bringing him back? He's making $6 million.
And as far as Broberg goes, don't expect him to. He'll make some noise in the preseason, but knowing Peter Holland and how he conducts his business, look what he did over in Detroit, overseasoning in the AHL, and that you got to expect that from him. Bouchard, he came in and did pretty well, and all things considered, this season for a few games, and you think that he'll probably make a step forward and make a push to get on this team's roster. I think if they let Adam Larson go, that's going to be a big miss, and that they need him on that blue line. They really do. If they don't, and whoever gets him, they're going to have a good, solid second pairing defenseman that they can rely on to hit, block, and to do well on the PK. So they do have a lot of work to do on that back end, as we were talking about the forwards there too, right?
Yeah, for sure. Luis, thank you. It says Marchand and Bergeron, they are superstars. I wouldn't say they're superstars. They're stars, but I wouldn't call them superstars.
If we're talking about, the tiers of this league, of, like you said, McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, I'd say they're definitely very, very close. If those are the 1As, and the 1Bs are a Bergeron, Brad Marchand, and Pasternak's up there too for being kind of a perennial goal scorer within this league. I'd say that Pasternak and Kucherov are very similar players, and you could put them on the same tier, or whatever tier that is.
Kucherov, Michael points out, was a third rounder. So an interesting offseason. Lots of I guess the other question is Dave Tippett. Is he on the hot seat?
I don't think so. Once again, I think he did the best that he could within with what he had on that team, and they've had too many coaches come in there to do the coaching carousel of the Edmonton Oilers. So I think overall you need to just be patient with him. You know that he's a good coach, and you know that he's I'd say he's in the top half of, if you're looking at the coaches around the league that are coaching as head coaches, that he's in that top half tier. I think that he's underrated for what he does for that team, and I think it's up to Peter Holland to
Ken Holland, by the way.
Ken, I said Peter before. I know, and
You've said Peter all the time. I'm like, I'll interrupt you at some point.
Yeah, thank you. Ken Holland, Peter Holland is a former player, but Ken Holland up there, he needs to make sure that that he gives a tip at the good, like a good enough chance to make the team better, so that he can deploy his players the way that he needs to. So I think that if anybody would be on the hot seat, it would be Ken Holland, not Peter. But Ken, he just got signed there last year, so he's a long-term solution and a long-term GM up there. So I don't think that anybody has to be worried about their job.
The only thing that I'm wondering is, what if McDavid says Tippett's not the guy?
Then it's man, I can't. And then Holland needs to step down, or bring the foot down and be like, sorry, like realistically, he just came in. But I don't know. I don't know what I would do if that was that situation. I'm going back and forth in my head.
That's not an unrealistic. I don't think that unrealistic of a question, is it?
No, I don't think so. Of course, you're gonna be listening to your the best player in the world. He's a guy who puts once fans do come back, fans in the stands, and creates revenue on a different level for the owner. And I guess. If you're Holland, then you have to listen to him, because you know that who's the owner up there? His name is
Daryl Cates.
Daryl Cates. You know that Cates is going to be on his ass about not listening to McDavid because of what revenue he brings in and what McDavid does mean to that team. So I guess, if you're Holland and you hear that from McDavid, then either you have to convince him that Holland has a plan and trust the process that he's going to be putting forward. But with McDavid, I think that winning means a hell of a lot more than anything else in his mind. He has the contract, so he's not worried about money. What's next? Are we just going to be a mediocre team? No, you want to win. So that's where once again, going back to the whole McDavid wanting out, that's where I think the pressure is gonna come to a boiling point, and he will want out if he doesn't see progress within the next few years. But are you willing to? Is Cates willing to pay another coach for being there?
Well, same boat as the Oilers, does the Flames and the Canucks, right?
Yep.
Like not. I don't think you're certainly not wanting to pay another someone for not do a job. That's like at this particular point with the pandemic. So let's move on. We've covered that series, I think, enough.
Beat it to death. The Oilers are pounded. Done.
Yeah.
And
don't forget.
I just want to say that I am thrilled that the Oilers are out. There was one question that was posed to me. Would you rather have the disappointment of losing Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals for the team that you despise and dislike the most, and that's me and Edmonton, or would you rather have them swept in the first round? And I actually did not think that would be the case here, but I said swept in the first round so that they don't even have a breath. And the amount of disappointment within that organization and that fan base is just dead silent, and it happened. So sorry, Edmonton fans. I think Graham, I love you, Graham, but your team's not good.
And to add to all of this, Devin, as a Leafs follower, for the Edmonton Oilers to blow a 4-1 lead midway through the third period.
I gotta say, for people who are comparing that loss in 2013 from first round Boston versus Toronto, that one I can guarantee stings more. Game 7, that was a game
Absolutely.
7. Less than 10 minutes to go in the third period, and losing in overtime in that fashion. Oh man, James Reimer. Jake Gardiner probably still has nightmares of coughing up that puck in OT, and oh man, I vividly remember that disappointment and that being as shell shocked. I think there's only one player left on the roster that was around back then, which was Morgan Riley.
Oh yeah.
I don't think there's anybody else, because the Tyler Bozaks, JVRs, Phil Kessels of the world are gone. So I think that if it ever comes down to that they'll be relying heavily on, I guess you do have a bunch of experience within that locker room with all the veterans on there, but someone who actually went through it was Morgan Riley, so they'd be looking at that. But let's not even talk about it. Let's not even put that in the atmosphere. For the love of God.
Let's just move over there for that for a second. But if you do, make sure you do subscribe, follow us, podcast_hockey, like us. We're not finished. I'm just, adding a, subscribe button, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We move on to the Leafs and the Habs here, which feels like, for all that we thought would be the series that everyone would be talking about, this was the one in terms of the North that is not getting as much talk at this particular point. Well, now it's going to get all of our attention because it's the only series going. I think to me, the series has been probably a little bit. I think the loss of the whole Tavares incident, not to go back to it, but I think it's been intense, but it hasn't had that intensity yet. I think we're kind of in a little bit of a lull here.
Well, that's a good point because of the Tavares thing. Because if you think about how high tempo and how much passion and how much speed and intensity there was within that first, I don't even know when he went down, the first 8 to 10 minutes of that first period. It's definitely lost its luster. So I don't think you bringing that up is poor taste. I think that's very, very much on brand for what has transpired within the past 2.5 games.
Yeah. I think that, special teams has been a difference in this series. And I think we'll get to the Canadian. I think we'll have an intro whenever the Canadians are eliminated, if and when. I think there's going to be some fascinating questions about where the Canadians at. But Carey Price was outstanding. Jack Campbell, I think, has been solid so far. He hasn't had to be amazingly spectacular, but he was late when the Canadians were putting on pressure in the last half of the third period. He was great, I thought. I think their defense is coming. The Leafs defense is coming together there. I've been liking the pair of Hall and Muzzin. And again, you find, the Tavares. I'm not saying that the Leafs don't miss Tavares, because I think they clearly miss Tavares, but they're getting what they need from Alex Kerfoot.
Yep.
They're getting exactly what they need. And I think we're talking about evolution of players. Austin Matthews is becoming a bit of a shit disturber.
Yeah, how could you not want to punch that face? That smile that he had when Ben Sherratt was behind him, trying to get him to take a penalty, as he had a penalty in the first game. You just see that smile, and it like, as much as I love Austin Matthews, he has such a punchable face. With that mustache and that receding hairline, it's funny just to see him smile like that, and it's funny because it just reminds me of myself back in the day. Whenever somebody was trying to egg me on, I just smile at them, and it would just make them even more angry. And you see that compounding here with Ben Sherratt and the Shea Weber over there. It's quite funny. So that I love that take, Kev. He is a shit disturber for sure.
Look at his face. Like, look at that.
Just smiling away. Oh,
Yeah.
what a beauty.
Yeah.
Seriously. I like the mustache doesn't help at all either. He just looks like a 70s porn star with that hairline and that stash. So yeah, he is a shit disturber, but he really hasn't come alive in this series yet, which I'm still waiting for him to have flashes of himself and what he can do. But credit to the Montreal Canadiens have been able to shut him down, and how they deploy their special teams right now on the PK, because you do have Matthews, Sandin up top with Matthews and Marner on the flanks there, and both of them are they know what Austin Matthews can do. So credit to them to shutting him down as much as they have so far. Because if he goes off, if Matthews finds a way to penetrate that defensive structure that they have in front of Carey Price, and Carey Price is playing out of his mind. That save that he had on Jason Spezza last night was world-class, unbelievable. But going back to Matthews, if he finds a way to start producing more within this series and making more of an effort, then yeah, you got to expect that Toronto's going to come out on top.
Yeah, but the guy that I think forward-wise has been the best, most consistent forward for the Leafs has been William Nylander. And this is a guy, we talked about this on Sunday when you weren't on, but you were listening. Goes back to what Kyle Dubas and standing up for what the media has, some of the media comments from particularly Toronto Sun, and what Kyle Dubas did, and kind of that conversation. But Steve Simmons said William Nylander was as useful as IKEA furniture. Remember that?
Oh my God! Once again, it's just clickbait, man. That's all it is. You started out with the rant about the media not giving the Jets enough credit, but Steve Simmons in Toronto, he's a fucking jackass. Like through and through, he's a dick, and he loves to do that. He loves to do it.
There's the Carey Price save, by the way, that you were referring to.
Yeah, Jason Spezza. Just quickly on Jason Spezza, since we have this up here, he has been so good in this series. He's had unbelievable chances, and it's only a matter of time before because he has one goal in this series, I believe. He will produce, and he will be a difference maker within that lineup. But yeah, I guess going back to William Nylander, I personally think that if he keeps on rolling like he is right now, that's a Conn Smythe candidate right there. And depending on how far they go, and if they go all the way, I always take a look to see on each team who's playing very, very well and who's been the difference maker on each team in the playoffs. And right now, you're right, William Nylander definitely is been the most consistent and the most impactful player. And you, at the beginning of the series, you would have thought otherwise. You would have thought Marner, Matthews, Tavares would have been up there too. But right now, yeah, it's Willie.
Yeah, he's been outstanding, and I think their defense for the Canadians. I mean, Cole Caulfield had his chances last night. He's got a shot, and he's got it. He looks like a guy that's going to be clutch. He's going to be one of those guys that is going to score important goals in the National Hockey League.
Well, he had that chance when the net was empty there for to tie it up. It was very close.
Yeah,
it was very, very close.
Yeah. The one thing that I do think is is clearly an issue with the Canadians, and I think even without Tavares, I still think the Leafs have this advantage. Up the middle is clearly the Leafs. It's as Nick Suzuki has been okay. He got a goal last night. Kotkaniemi has been inconsistent. Danault, I don't think has been that noticeable. The loss of Jake Evans is hurting them. But that's up the middle is where the Leafs have the strongest advantage.
Even without
Tavares.
Tavares, yeah, like you have Matthews, Kerfoot, Engvall, and last night was Riley Nash, but you have Jason Spezza that can jump in there. You have Joe Thornton who can jump in there. You have William Nylander who has played center, and Zach Hyman when he needs to be on that top line. If Matthews gets kicked out, Hyman he has a pretty good face-off record as well. I totally agree with you that we talked about in the Jets Oilers series that the depth on that forward roster is crazy. Pierre Engvall, what a beast! Similar to Jason Spezza, he's had a lot of very good chances, and there's been a couple that have Carey Price has been able to just get a little bit or enough of it for it to change a trajectory to go in the net. So it's crazy how much depth down the middle and depth throughout your lineup matters within a playoff run. And once again, you don't know who's going to get injured, and you don't know. So you need to prepare for the worst case scenario. And talk about one of the worst case scenarios that could have happened to Toronto would be Tavares going down, but they've been able to push past it and been able to, get 2 wins in a row so far. And they're playing again tonight. And I cannot wait to see what is going to happen because, Montreal, if Carey Price keeps on playing the way that he is, oh my God, he's playing out of his mind. He's vintage Carey Price. So I think that some people have Montreal written off right now, but you can't at all because they could come out and shut down that top line and shut down everything that they can and just get ahead or tie up the series tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, the series has the trajectory is kind of like low, but I think once we get to someone getting to game 3 to their 3rd win, that's when I think this intensity ramps up. And if this gets to game 6, with 2,500 fans in Montreal, I think that's going to be that will bring a little bit more of an element. I hope this gets to a game 6.
As far as a fan goes, I don't. But
I'm sitting here as an objective observer.
Yeah, that's valid. I just think that if it does get to game 6, having 2,000 fans within the Bell Center will energize the Montreal Canadiens. And if that happens, and if Montreal wins that game because of the fans, then it becomes a little bit butt puckering, if you will. For me as a Leaf fan and all other Leaf fans, because that having the momentum going into the game 7 it's anybody's game.
Yeah. I mean, it so there's a lot that can happen. I think right now, I think we're still dealing a little bit with the Tavares aftermath of everything that happened there. We had our conversations about it, so you can certainly go back and watch those videos and watch those pods as well about that. So we won't get into that too much there. But I mean, yeah, it'll be an interesting game tonight. I mean, no question. Both lineup shouldn't. I mean, maybe a lineup change for Montreal. I don't suspect anything for Toronto. I think they'll go status quo.
Yeah, I don't see anything happening within
unless Foligno's healthy.
Yeah, then you take out Riley Nash because I don't think that he's quite up to where we need him to be. I mean, it was a good acquisition by Dubas at the trade deadline to get him. Just once again, just for depth purposes, obviously he's being utilized here. But I would hope that Foligno we will be able to go, because you talk about a playoff performer, former captain. He will make a difference within that lineup and solidify that top 9 a lot better. And you don't have to rely solely on Alex Kerfoot for producing at a second line as a second line center. So other than that, I don't see anything else happening.
Yeah, we'll discuss that game, of course, after the game a little bit later. So let's just quickly touch on the other series here. Spencer Knight made his debut with the Florida Panthers. He allowed the first goal, the first shot on goal went in, and he never had nothing else did. And the Florida Panthers stave off elimination with a 4-1 win. And we have a game 6. We have an interesting goalie situation in Florida that's, I think, going to last into the off season. Can Florida make this a 7-game series?
I think so. I'm sticking to my my original prediction that Florida will beat out Tampa Bay. Good on Spencer Knight, though. Just touching quickly on that. He had 36 saves out of 37 shots. He looked calm, cool, collected in that net. I thought that when you're a rookie goaltender coming into your first playoff game and you let the first shot go by, that's hard to come back from. But he's on a different level, and I guess thinking about it, who do you think is going to have a better career as of right now? And it's super early to tell with Carter Hart and Spencer Knight, but I think about goaltenders coming in and making a difference for the team, and Carter Hart was one of them. And this year he had a bit of an off year, but I see something within Spencer Knight's game that he will. With that three-headed monster of Dreger, Bobrovsky, and himself, and maybe even Devin Levi, because he had a bit of emergence in the World Juniors. It's a very, very interesting offseason that the GM down there in Florida, in Florida, is going to be having, as we were talking about Ken Holland in the offseason as well. I think it's fascinating going forward to see exactly how things are going to unfold. With that goaltending situation down there.
Yeah. And someone brought this up. Watch out for the name Ian Clark. If Vancouver does not sign him, that could be a place that he ends up. So that's another fascinating situation. By the way, Spencer Knight is the youngest goaltender since Tom Barrasso to win a playoff game when facing elimination, and that was back in 1985. So
wow, that takes you back, doesn't it? Holy, amazing.
Yeah. Let's let me put the Minnesota Wild, who I have beating the Las Vegas Golden Knights, off elimination with former Oiler goaltender Cam Talbot standing on his head. The Vegas Golden Knights outshot the Minnesota Wild 22-1 in the last little bit of that game, and the Wild won.
Yeah, if you run into a hot goalie, your team or whichever team has that hot goalie is going to thrive, especially in the playoffs. So does it surprise me? No, because watching Cam Talbot, he started his career in New York with backing up King Hank Lundqvist, and then got traded to Edmonton. Had an amazing year. They overplayed the crap out of him. Then had an off year. Came to Calgary. And he played pretty well for Calgary. So I don't think that he's getting enough credit for how good of a goaltender he is. He's played amazing, and good on him. I now thinking about the big picture. Who do you want to see playing Colorado in that in that next round? I personally would love to see Vegas just for
I get
viewing,
it.
But as far as like the good story line goes, Minnesota getting past the first round, I think would be spectacular. I just don't see it happening though.
Yeah, I see what you're saying here, but that game is back in Minnesota. Vegas has won 2 games in there, so I think they have the confidence now. But Minnesota hasn't always been kind to them, so we'll see. But kudos to Cam Talbot though too, because he got maligned a little bit at Edmonton. I think what happened during the elimination game with Calgary and the Stars, I think that game hurt him. I mean, some will debate that the Flames should have kept Talbot and not signed Markstrom. That's not my position. I don't know if Talbot would have stayed, to be quite frank and honest with you. I think he wanted to go. I think he needed to get. I think the situation said he needed to go, and good on him. I think he found a place in Minnesota where he's home, and I'm happy for him.
I'm too. He's a good family guy. And yeah, it's working out for him down there as a tandem with Kokkonen as a rookie goaltender, and they were a good tandem. And when you need to rely on a goalie, Cam Talbot, he's not a bad one to have. I'm sure people at Edmonton are reluctant to say this, but would you rather have Cam Talbot? Would you rather have Mike Smith? Or, Koskinen? I'm cherry picking. I shouldn't be doing that, but when you wake up and the Oilers are eliminated, you can't help but shit on him a little bit. But yeah, good on Cam Talbot. Really happy with them for him.
Yeah. There was another double overtime game last night, and is not getting nearly the attention that of course we spent most of our time on today. And let me just pull up the play, because it has a play, and it is, it's Mike Smith-esque in terms of what happened here, but I can't do there, but I'll move this up a little bit here. There we go. Tristan Jarry with the pass. He could have cleared that anywhere else.
Yep.
But he put it right on the stick of Josh Bailey, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are facing elimination.
Oh man, I talk about a heartbreaking story for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, you had Jim Rutherford say that Tristan Jarry is going to be one of the future of the franchise as far as goaltenders go, and he hasn't really shown it to be. He has a weak glove hand. The Islanders have definitely exposed it throughout this entire series, and then to a nice little cherry on top, he goes and throws a muffin up the middle of the ice, pretty much the middle of the ice. At that point of the game, he wanted to be the hero and he wanted to make that spectacular play, but obviously it didn't work out and it ended up in the back of the net. So I feel for Pens fans, but I personally did have the New York Islanders beating the Pittsburgh Penguins, and with that defensive structure, I think it's going to be hard for them to get two in a row. But they have obviously won within the series. So if you're not watching that series and you've been paying attention to others, this is definitely a great battle between two teams.
Yeah, it's a shame one of them has to lose, but it's back in Nassau. Yeah. They're going to be loud. That's going to be fun.
Most underrated fans in the NHL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I would totally agree with that there. It's and not a team with a lot of stars. I mean, someone posted on Twitter that the Jets are like the Islanders in terms of just again, it's team structure and finding way. Like Daryl Sutter said it too. You have to, it's a 3-2 league, and Barry Trotz is under that same philosophy. It's a 3-2 league. And they play that way. I mean, except it was a little. It was 3-2.
Yep.
See.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I understand once again, going back to our earlier conversations, you need a superstar to win championships, to win the Stanley Cup. Yeah, they help, but Crosby, Malkin, they're on the verge of elimination. McDavid, Draisaitl, they didn't get past the first round, and you look at that team in New York. You don't really have any big superstars on that team. You have a Matt Barzal, and outside of that, I mean, you have a bunch of really good hockey players that buy into the system of, in my opinion, top 3 coaches in the league in Barry Trotz. how could you not cheer for them or want them to win? You have a rookie goaltender back there, Sorokin, who
He was great,
amazing. And you have Varlamov as a 1B option. Is he back? Because he got injured, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah. Either way, you have a great defensive structure and great defense line of you have Pelech, Pulak, Mayfield, just to name a few of those guys just off the top of my head. And if you're not paying attention to that team and watch how they play, it's not what your normal defensive structure or defensive teams play the trap and all that bullshit, which isn't really exciting hockey. Like Ottawa went out when they went on their run. God, when was that one? I can't even remember. Anyways, yeah, it's actually a fun style of hockey that they do play. So yeah,
that was 2017.
Yeah, it's 2017. Yes. Right before they traded Carlson away, and they traded away Hoffman, and that whole debacle. But yeah, I'm hoping for the best for New York. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh fans. I love New York and the way their makeup.
If Crosby and Malkin get eliminated, the only branded superstar that will be left in the final 8 will be Nathan McKinnon.
Well, Matthews, come on.
Oh, right. Well, no, but we know for sure.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm not saying it may be McKinnon and Matthews will be it depends. And Carey Price, I think you can brand there too. But the only one for sure that we know for going for sure is Nathan McKinnon.
Yep, so, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to dismiss Austin Matthews as a superstar, but my point is we know who's going to the second round.
I'm just getting cocky.
It's totally fine.
But once again, you never know what's going to happen. You got to play the games. You got to watch them and see how they pan out. So you can't take anything for granted in this league.
No. Well, let's leave it there. We will be back to recap. There's 2 games tonight. It's Carolina, Nashville, which that's been a series and a half itself. That series is tied at 2.
Who would have thought that Nashville would be where they are? Honestly.
Yeah, you talk about the talent difference.
Yeah, they came in hot at the end of the season, and you had, I think the majority of people had Carolina not sweeping them, but definitely not being tied 2-2 going into Game 5. That's for sure.
Yep, 2 double overtime wins in Nashville, and they got the Leafs and the Habs tonight. So we'll be back to recap tonight. Are we back recapping tonight, or do we come on in the morning?
Let's play it by ear as of right now, but I think we'll be able to recap because it starts at 5:30, right? It's 5:30 start.
4:30 my time, yeah.
Yeah, 5:30 Mountain, 4:30 Pacific. Yeah, I'd say let's plan for tonight, and if you don't hear from us, pay attention to us tomorrow morning, and we'll be on again around the same time.
Exactly. So how do we follow you?
I'm at Gordhouse09 on Twitter.
Sean is Beardy Connect 03. Tyler's TNOBLE. Chris is Schneids SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE. Podcast _ hockey. Facebook.com, the hockey podcast. YouTube.com, the hockey podcast. Click that subscribe button. Subscribe to the audio. Tell your friends, your family. Thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.